Welcome into another Q&A. This week we have a fun one, and because of the time of year, after the holidays, people kind of do a few things a little different, and dry January being upon us. We have a cool guest, Philip Brandes, founder and CEO of Bravus, the non-alcoholic craft brewery. Philip, welcome in.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, John.
I appreciate it. And, reading up about, it's funny because about a year ago, I did a dry January, a couple of things with spiritless kind of alcohols of different things. And to me, that was kind of new then. Now I feel like it's just second nature. These, there's a plethora of options where there wasn't once before. So I appreciate you coming on. And before we get into Bravus, tell us a little bit about yourself, because you didn't come from technically a craft beer brewing background.
No. In fact, technically, I came from a technical background. So yeah, software development probably couldn't be further from beer brewing. But it's funny, we use technology quite a bit at our brewery. It's just such a different process that we utilize, and we've built a lot of technology around brewing because at the end of the day, most people can brew a beer, but to brew that same beer right over and over again requires a lot of data. There's so many variables. And so, yeah, I was a software developer for many, many years, and it was slowly killing me. Had a couple back surgeries by age 33, and it was so antisocial. And my brother actually kind of was the spark, and a good friend of mine both were the sparks to kind of get me into this business. Both were craft beer enthusiasts, and I don't know, I'll definitely get into that for sure. But yeah, it was a very big change, not just for me mentally, but my body as well.
Well, it was cool to read too, because I'm going to get into this question after, but you kind of did some home brewing too, but we'll get to that in a second. But how did Bravus come about? Because or how did it get started? I know you guys were doing some stuff and then it built up, but how did it all come to be, and now have these awesome cans?
Yeah, so I mentioned those two guys, and one of them was my brother. He was a craft beer junkie. He dragged me to my first it was like Pliny the Younger release down here. They only make a few kegs, and we stood in line for hours just to get a sip. And after 4 hours of sitting out in 100-degree weather and getting to the front of the line and getting a small, like 8-ounce pour of this triple IPA. I mean, one sip in, I don't even remember how it tasted. I was like completely wasted by the time I'd finished it. But I realized there were a bunch of other, let's call it enthusiasts, or standing right there in line with me. I go, I want to do something. I want to make a beer like this. Everyone's standing in line. And so even at the time, I knew that, it was pretty competitive, right? There were so many IPAs and so many different styles out there. But also at the same time, a good friend of mine who was also a craft beer junkie and was a home brewer, and he loved it. And he started drinking a bit too much. Brewers, I think at the time, this is back in like 2014, 2015, started seeing how much booze they could put in and how much alcohol they could squeeze into a triple IPA, a barrel-aged imperial, 18, 19, 20%. I mean, these weren't even beers anymore. These were cocktails. And so unfortunately, he developed a problem. And his wife said to him one day, look, it's the me or the beer. And for a young guy, it's a hard decision, but he chose correctly. He chose his family and gave up drinking, but was faced with the stereotypical choices, Duels and the Sharps of the world, and was just so devastated, not just from a taste perspective, right, but was just embarrassed, right? The stigma around drinking non-alcoholic beer. He would actually order one from a restaurant, like whisper to the waiter, hey, can I have an O'Doul's? And even when it came to the table, he would actually turn the label around and drink it this way so that no one knew he was drinking O'Doul's, that big green label. So I said, look, I want to do something about this. You're my good friend. I'm sure I can figure out a way, right? If I can write code and program software, maybe I can figure out a way to make a great tasting NA craft beer. And you teach me how to homebrew and I'll do it. And so that's what he did, and built the ubiquitous home brew setup in our garage, and bought all the equipment, and he taught me, and ended up hiring, I started diving into research basically, and kind of talk about the process a little bit later, but just kind of started that way, and looked for a way to do it that was different than all the other craft I guess beers on the market. And basically after a year, we kind of fell upon it, and my wife said, look, she's a CPA. She said, look, you better start a company, write the stuff off, because you're spending way too much of our savings getting into this. So, and then, the rest is history, as they say.
Well, that sometimes that's just how it tends to work, and you just never know how it's going to work. But I found it interesting too, because you touched on it. You were home brewing. When people think home brewing, they're thinking of making just normal beer, but you were actually doing non-alcoholic, correct?
Right.
How different was that? Because it's not like there was I'm guessing a ton of information out there, because that it wasn't the thing, especially back then, that it is now. And even now, it's still not the easiest of processes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, in fact, it's almost impossible to brew it on a homebrew level. You can distill it out, right, or try to filter it out, but there's no actually. It's strange. So, like, typical homebrew equipment like hydrometers and those things, they can't really measure the absence of alcohol, right? They're meant for alcoholic beer, and so I got really close with home brewing, but I knew that I had to take that next step into commercial brewing, just to be able to afford the equipment, just to even test the fact that I could create a non-alcoholic beer. And but no, I mean, we distilled, and you could run some tests at some external labs, and that's what I did. And I got pretty close, but it was really until we made the jump that I could actually afford to buy all the cool equipment and develop the technology to even create the stuff in the first place. Yeah.
I mean, I asked this to some other folks. How difficult was it for folks to initially grasp your idea of a non-alcoholic craft brewery that's doing different things, and not just maybe taking the alcohol out of one beer and going, here you go,
Yeah. Well, I'll let you know when that actually happens, but
I know it's an uphill battle. I know it's an uphill battle.
It was. I mean, up until very recently, I would say even, right up to the pandemic, we'd walk into accounts and say, hey, we have this, great new non-alcoholic craft beer. It's an IPA. And they'd kind of look at us funny and say, well, yeah, we sell about 2 NA beers a year. And wait, how much do you want to charge for this? And so there's the door, right? But with pandemic, it's interesting. Obviously alcohol sales they skyrocketed, but people were looking for, and even prior, this whole movement towards better for you, like hard seltzers, hard teas, hard, just low cal, vegan, gluten reduced or gluten free. There was really, we started off as headwinds, grew into tailwinds. And so instead of us trying to convince people that this is the future, people were approaching us because they wanted to live healthier lives. I mean, and so, yeah, it still is. Look, anywhere from accounts to distributors to even everyday people, we get a lot of crap on social media, like what's the point, or what the heck? We already have an NA beer. It's called Diet Coke. And so, yeah, it was just it always is an interesting, but I feel like those are the people that need it the most, right? Yeah, no, it's been great. I mean, we can't make enough of this stuff. There's such a movement now. And it's interesting to talk about. I don't know if you want to get into now, but like who our consumer is always pretty fascinating. It used to be sort of stereotypically these older, right? And stereotypical, like, in recovery or pregnant women, right? All the things, but we had a huge older demographic and older Gen X, right? Boomers, seniors, and people who don't really drink because they can't drink. Doctors said, look, one more double IPA and it's history for you. But really that's changed even the past year. Again, it's like it's shifted so much younger now, millennials, millennials, Gen Y, whatever gen we're on. These are people that they didn't necessarily grow up with craft beer. Like they went right to seltzers, right, when they started drinking, and all the sort of different better for you beverages. And so we sort of repositioned a bit with our new branding here, and started really going not just for beer moments. I really always wanted this to be a beer, right? I didn't want it to be a recovery drink after a workout, or I want it to be a beer. But now it's just changed so much. It's more of a beverage. So now we're kind of focusing on, hey, let's go beyond beer moments and really just kind of go for beverage moments. So kind of our new tagline is like, anytime's a good time for Bravus, because you can have it in the morning. I mean, it's 10 o'clock now here, whenever. You just have it whenever you want to enjoy something, a nice kind of non-sweet, not a soda, not an energy drink, just something kind of really that tastes great and is refreshing.
Well, and I've talked to a few folks, especially on the other podcast that we have, where we do a nice little tasting notes section. And, some folks, even at the end of a night, they're still out with their friends, they're done. They know they need to behave, and they'll order a non-alcoholic and not think twice about it anymore. And I think that just says a lot about, one, the quality that folks are making now, including yourselves, and two, just how you said people's minds have changed so much.
Yeah, we call that the bartender's friend, because sometimes people don't ask. They say, "Give me another beer, or we'll burn this place down." And so bartender's like, "Okay, here's one." They're not telling them it's a non-alcoholic, but definitely, giving that last one for the road, so to speak.
And you talked a little bit about this. You come from that technology background, technical background, where you've had to kind of figure out how to brew on a larger scale and come about it. And there's, I've learned there's several different ways. A lot of folks kind of de-alcoholize it. Others do it kind of the traditional craft brewing way that you would think, with some other steps. How does that you can tell us?
Yeah.
I don't want to give any trade secrets away, but that you can tell us about how you guys go about it and how that differs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we keep it pretty close to our vest, but when my friend was looking, I was trying to brew something for him, we tested all of them, and they all tasted the same. They all tasted pretty bad. And so I realized really early on that, alcohol removal is not a way to make a beer. They all have that very similar, I can taste, and most people can taste, either reverse osmosis or filtered out, right? Or distilled NA craft beer, like from a mile away. Technology has definitely improved over the years, right? Vacuum distillation and these new machines like the what's it called, the Alchemator or whatever. It's definitely improved, but I don't know, I'm not a fan. I feel like, our method, which just doesn't really put a lot of alcohol in the first place, just is more it's just closer to a true craft beer, brewing process. And so it's a pain in the ass the way we do it. It's like, it's not fun, and we've gotten better and better, but essentially it's all about data. Like, so we apply a lot of data to this. We know at every step of the way, almost every second, our tanks are beaming information to us: temperature, time, gravity, DO, pH. So we really look at the data to try and almost, again, like programming. We're almost programming the yeast to do what we want to do. And it's yeast, though, it doesn't listen to us sometimes, but we've gotten pretty good at kind of, just changing the process a bit to great. And it allows us really to, I think the problem with some of that distillation stuff and removal, it limits you to some of the styles you can make. And I think that's why you see a lot of people kind of start out with, they try an IPA and that's really it. Like, our MO is really just kind of unique, like that blood orange IPA that you're drinking, and raspberry goza and peanut butter stouts. And so really true, like craft, I mean, it's almost like having like a time machine. It's like stepping back 15 years ago or 20 years ago and saying, all right, well, what was popular back then? And then just doing it now. So it's almost like we have our DeLorean, and okay, IPAs, West Coast IPAs or hazies were big back then. Let's try an NA version of those and see what happens.
Well, and you've gotten a lot of awards for that. I know the Raspberry Ghost has done well. I'm enjoying the Blood Orange IPA. I think what I was most amazed by was the gravitas,
Mhm.
because when you think of, barrel aged anything, now obviously it's
Right.
not bourbon barrel aged or anything like that. It's just legit. It's a barrel aged,
Mhm.
non-alcoholic craft brew. But I mean, but like doing stuff like that, I mean, that has to set you apart from other kind of exclusive non-A craft breweries, because I had never heard of anything like the gravitas before.
Yeah, yeah. I think that kind of goes back to what we're trying to do, and back to that whole stigma, right? People are always embarrassed of ordering an NA beer, drinking one, or and they should be. It's just it's not very good. And so, a couple of years ago, I had this crazy idea around this time where all the barrel aged releases like Goose Island and Bourbon County, all those are being released. I go, you know what? Let's try and do an NA barrel age. And of course, that took a long time to get right, because you have to age something, but and try not to impart a bunch of alcohol in the process. But ultimately, it goes beyond the liquid into the packaging, right? These kind of beautiful, 500 milliliters, kind of champagne, black, gold leaf labels, and hand capped. And we hand fill them and hand label them. It's just this kind of, we call it this labor of love, which is a huge pain. We're going through it right now. Actually, we just released it over Thanksgiving, and so really something that people can be proud of, put on their table, and not gain the attention of all the other people drinking these sort of alcoholic barrel aged stouts.
Well, no, and like you said, toward the end of the year, obviously, just about everyone does their barrel aged. It's barrel aged season. It's colder. Everyone wants something. So, I mean,
Yeah.
just the options that are now out there are amazing. I'm looking at a breakfast dark,
Mhm.
an oatmeal dark,
Yeah.
IPA, a lager. You do seasonal releases, and that's what non-alcoholic craft breweries can do now. You can do a little bit of everything, and that
Right.
and that's so cool. And obviously, like I said, talking last year, we were kind of, those tailwinds became, or the headwinds became the tailwinds, and things changed. How do you see the NA segment kind of moving forward? Obviously there's a lot of growth because it is such a truthfully young segment in terms of what's out there now with y'all and some
Yeah.
others doing what you're doing. What do you see kind of in 2022 and going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're looking at a bunch of different things. I mean, NA doesn't have to just come to beer, right? We're seeing a lot of spirits coming to the market. We're definitely diving into that, looking at wine, RTD. We're going to experiment with some CBD coming up here pretty soon. So really embracing just beverages across kind of the board here. It's still, I mean, yeah, it's still in its infancy. It's still about awareness. So, it was a tough year not being able to sample, right? Because ultimately, everyone will look at you funny when you mention an NA beer until they try it, and it's a whole different story. It was difficult, right? This past year, we really have to get the awareness out, really fight the stigma associated with NA beer, and it's great. I mean, people, our competitors or other people in the field are we're all sort of kind of moving this direction, trying to bring awareness to the category. And it's just getting started. I mean, we've been around for a bit, but only now it's getting a lot of traction, a lot of attention, and so obviously some great things coming up. So we're excited about it.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, it looks like it should be another great year, and obviously, dry January, sober October. Just if you just want a dry day or a dry nightcap, whatever, there's a lot of options. And I guess I'll round it out. I know you talked a little bit that you're looking into things, but what's next for y'all? I mean, obviously, you're looking at probably more seasonal releases and just trying to have a little more fun, I'm guessing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, we kind of changed around our core a bit. Uh, People are really loving that blood orange IPA, so that's becoming a core beer of ours. A raspberry goza, keeping with our seasonal peanut butter stout, which is a force to be reckoned with. Sometimes people all they want is that beer, and so but we're gonna keep that as seasonal for now. We got got a dry hopped IPA. We actually released it last year. Earlier this year, did pretty well. And then, every month our plan is to do a limited sort of online only release, a small batch. It's our chance to try stuff, push the envelope. Sometimes we get it right, sometimes we get it wrong, but the rights are more rights, I think, recently than wrongs, but it's always fun because, we do these online releases. It's great to get this feedback. It's something you don't see sometimes traditional beer manufacturers. They're mostly in wholesale. They don't do a lot of e-commerce. And so once the beer goes out the door, they don't really, unless it's on Tapped or something, but we get a lot of data through e-commerce is a huge business. It's all the any producers. It's a huge business because you can ship to almost every state. And so getting the feedback just on what people want and really letting them decide, hey, I'd like to get one of these, or, so we have a pretty cool calendar coming up. We're excited to share them. And I think we got to do this Gravitas maybe, I don't know, maybe twice a year now, because I don't know, it's so fun. And I think just why not? Although I don't know, a stout in July might be interesting, but
maybe a barrel aged Gosa.
Hey,
I mean,
not a bad idea. I like it. Yeah, something. Yeah. So
well,
yeah.
that sounds like you got a lot of good stuff. Go to bravus.com to find out some more. Check them out on social media. Philip, this has been a blast, and I've been enjoying the Blood Orange IPA. And folks, give non-alcoholic a try. Like I said, doesn't have to be dry January, whenever. It could just be you're feeling like you don't really want to drink too much tonight, and you have one of those. And like I said, Philip, thanks for coming on and sharing your story and the cool products you guys are making.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. Cheers.